was not good. There we go.
All right. Sorry about that, you guys. We're trying to get it together here. As usual, it's not always perfect. Welcome to another show. Welcome to another edition of SEC Talk with Holden and Cody. We got a little bit of news to bring to you guys. Obviously, if you guys are watching on video, you don't see us on the video tonight, but you do get to hear us. And that's the key point of this thing, is to at least be able to hear us. So, Cody, how we doing this Thursday evening as we get prepped up for this weekend's games?
We here. Damn. A lot of big news this past weekend that we kind of missed. Not really missed. They came out afterwards. I think the biggest one is news out of Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin being fined $25,000.
Ridiculous.
For a tweet that he did on Twitter.
Ridiculous.
Which, well, he's referring to that one play that did give Auburn the game for the most part.
Ridiculous, though. Ridiculous that he was fined. Listen, because I'm all for him backing his team and everything, but to be fined, that's ridiculous.
Did you see when they fined him, though?
Yeah, oh yeah. After he and the SEC,
done,
ridiculous.
Yeah, after they done reviewed the video, done had their conversation, and after he put that, he put that thing on Facebook, on Twitter, and then they fined him $25,000.
Yeah,
I'm like,
ridiculous.
Come on now,
ridiculous. That's what it was.
That's you got to do a better job than that.
Yeah.
But he does have a point there. I mean, the cheating in these games are, I don't know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
you said it, man. It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, some of the other news that I did read, too, as well, was that Miles Brennan, I believe, is still subject to be out this week. So they're going to stick with TJ Finley there at LSU, so he will be the quarterback against Auburn this weekend, and that was obviously Auburn that Ole Miss played last weekend that got another good officiating call for the second or third week in a row. And then the other that I saw is Joey Gatewood. He will get the start for Kentucky this weekend against Georgia, the Auburn transfer. I'm going to be interested to see how he turns out to be. Not a lot of film on him, obviously. He's got a little bit of playing time here and there, but it's going to be fun to see how he can handle that Georgia defense and see if he can make a little bit of difference there for Kentucky. And it'll also be kind of interesting to see, if he comes into this game and gives Georgia fits, does it make Auburn look even worse as far as Gus Malzahn sticking with Bo Nix instead of trying to get Joey Gatewood in there? I know we talked to a good friend of ours a little bit about it, and it sounds like he's doesn't really have the mental capability to kind of keep up with, the triggers of what is Auburn football and just Auburn in general. So maybe that's the reason there. So we'll see. He could come in and light the world up, or he could come in and get his world lit up, one way or the other. You got any other news around the league as far as the SEC goes? The other outside of obviously Florida finally getting back on the field.
Yeah. They got a game finally this weekend after their little outbreak down there in Gainesville.
Hey, one thing I was thinking about that was, they were talking about if they were to, because they've had like 6 or 7 more cases that have popped up this week alone. If I don't think that they're going to have to postpone the Missouri game. Obviously, that threshold has to be reached for them to be able to cancel or postpone a game. They've already postponed the LSU game to the 12th, which is the week before the SEC championship. It's the only gap. The end of season, then boom, you got the 12th, then you got boom, turn around the 19th, which, by the way, they did come out and say that the SEC championship game is going to be at 8 o'clock. It'll be the first time the SEC championship game is on at prime time there at 8 o'clock on December 19th. But I was thinking about this. If Florida was to have a rise in numbers and not be able to put an entire team on the field next week when they are set to play Georgia, could you imagine? That throws your schedule all off. But if I was Florida, I would say, listen, as much as I would rather reschedule LSU and have to play them, for the ability to even be able to play in the SEC championship, what matters more, playing LSU or playing Georgia? Clearly Georgia. If you play Georgia and you can beat them, you are the one that gets to stand in for the East. If you have to forfeit it all together, that doesn't happen. So that's going to be something else to keep an eye on as we continue forward and see how the end of this week shakes out for the Gators down there in Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, dude, there's a lot of changing going on around the ACC with coronavirus as far as scheduling goes. So now it becomes a mind game for the head coaches. What do I get me the best chance to finish this season in top of my division? And there's been a lot of talk after Jalen Waddle went down for Alabama that Alabama's season's done for the most part. They'll get the SEC, get into the championship game, and then they think that just because we lost our best receiver means we're out for the season. Or the Alabama lost their best receiver that they're out for the season. At the same time, that's where the recruiting class comes into play. They got the depth chart of receivers that are 4 deep on every position. So all it is just a rotational thing. So the next guy has to step up and show that he's able to produce the quality of performance that is required from the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So we done seen some of it, after Waddle got injured in the game. Bolden came in, made some really plays, and there's still talk about who's actually going to get that position. So I guess we'll find out this weekend when they get another little bit of not really a challenge, but a tough team to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like you were saying, I think that kind of wraps up our at least inside of the league around the SEC some news, and then the latest news that is breaking outside of the league. Cody, I'll let you take that away that we just learned about just a couple of hours ago.
Which one?
It's Clemson.
Oh yeah. Outside the SEC, if you haven't heard, the starting quarterback, Heisman front runner for the Clemson Tigers, is corona positive, which means he is out for Boston College as of right now. And with it being in that 3-day gap, as he got tested today and it showed positive, there's no way he's going to be able to play Boston College this Saturday, as far as I know of. Now, I think I talked about before, I think the ACC is a 2-week limit. Well, if that's the case, there goes Boston College, and the one team that can also upset their season, Notre Dame. Clemson has a really tough 2 weeks coming up, and that backup has a lot of pressure on his shoulders to keep that team in that number 1 spot. So we'll see how he steps up this weekend against Boston College.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. If you're anybody who's watched any of the QB1 episodes that are actually out, I think you can actually go and look at them on Netflix now. He was actually in them. I think he was playing at St. Thomas Aquinas maybe, or one of the other schools, and he may have been like a sophomore in the episode, and the starting quarterback actually got hurt, and he took over. His name's, I think, DJ Ungalele, I think is how you say his name. But the dude's got a good arm. It'll be fun to watch and see how he turns around. The other thing that's going to be fun to watch is when we learned about this earlier, the line that I saw on it was 30. Let's see what it looks like tomorrow. Let's see what it looks like Saturday coming into that game. That game's going to change because Trevor Lawrence he gives you, as far as the point spread goes, he gives you, he gives you everything. You got ETN there, but the ball going out to Amari Rodgers usually doesn't happen unless it's Trevor Lawrence back there. Now, again, I think DJ's going to be able to come in there and take care of it, but the question is not going to be against Boston College this week. The question is going to be next week against Notre Dame. No knock on Boston College. They are 4-2 on the season, but going against an undefeated Notre Dame top 5 ranked team next week is going to be the biggest question. Obviously, you got to get through this week first. Prayers out to them. I did see where it was luckily an isolated event. They did all the testing from Thursday's practice. Wednesday was when they did their test, and Thursday it was the only positive test on the team, so that's good. But they did say that he had mild conditions, so prayers to him, and hopefully he can have a fast and speedy recovery, not only for football and for his team, but for the sake and healthy of himself as well.
They're showing a lot on the app. So, another big news outside of the SEC, Pac-10. Wisconsin having issues with coronavirus. I think it was Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Was it Wisconsin that was having?
Yeah, it was Wisconsin. Yeah. It was their quarterback was the main deal, because their starting quarterback was hurt. So then their second string, who had a great game there, and Graham Mertz, he showed out, and then he gets it. Then their fourth string quarterback turns around and gets it. So they're in a pinch, and the bad thing about the Big Ten is they take 3 weeks off instead of 2 like the SEC.
Well, here's a kicker of it too. As of about 5 hours ago, on October 29th, Wisconsin program had 16 active cases of coronavirus.
Yeah. That sounds like a Florida breakout right there.
They have canceled their game. Yeah, they have canceled the game against Nebraska this weekend. So, number 9, Wisconsin will not play, and we'll see how the polls address that situation there with the Badgers.
Yeah, we're going to see, because that again, this is an SEC based podcast, and what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep it based on that. We're going to spend just a couple of more minutes talking about some of these other leagues, and we're going to go ahead and dive into your SEC games of the weekend. But rounding out some of this stuff outside of it, talking about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. The Big Ten, obviously, 21 days is what they're looking at as far as having to be out. If they fall below that threshold, they don't have a lot of time in between. They don't have bye games or bye weeks. They don't have time to reschedule games and get these schedules in. So then it's going to come down to the committee, because I don't think the committee is going to look and say, hey, why should we change our dates that we have set in stone? We have got time set for all of these. We've got locations, all of this set. Why should we change it? Because a couple of these other conferences decided not to do like 2 of the other ones that have got in here, and they've had the ability to be able to adjust. Because for the Pac-12, for instance, there is zero room for error. If a team has to postpone or cancel a game, it's just canceled. And you go from having a lot, I say a lot, you have, a 9-game schedule, I think is what they're playing. You go from having a 9-game to all of a sudden you can have an 8 or 7. You're telling me that a 9-1, an 8-2 SEC team, or even a 10-0, 10 or 11-0, 10-1, 9-2 ACC team wouldn't get in over even an 8 or a 7-0 Pac-12 team? I don't see that happening. So they have no room for error, because the committee, to me, should not, and I don't think they will, change any of their posted dates that they have at the end of the year. So luckily for the SEC, they've got a little bit of leeway in a couple of bye weeks as well as the end of the season. But for the Big Ten and Pac-12, they don't. They have no room for error.
And I think I know that they kind of need to watch what's going on there and see what adjustments they make for all this going on with the coronavirus. So, like you mentioned, it's going to be tough on the committee whenever we start getting to this situation where you got people coming in team coming in that have an 8-2 record because they didn't play 2 games because of coronavirus.
Yeah.
Do you penalize them for that, or do you say, you know what, we'll just go on about it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, you're right on it. Well.
No, we have to wait around and see end of the year what the committee comes out and says as far as, officially.
Yeah.
What their stats or standards are going to be.
Yep.
But
that's it.
I think we're pretty good on Anything outside? I ain't heard anything else. Have you?
No, that's pretty much it. There. The next side of it is we're going as far as the news goes anyway. Next side of it, let's jump right into it. Let's get into some of the SEC football talk, and we're going to start it off with the Georgia Bulldogs, and they are traveling up to Lexington, Kentucky, to take on Kentucky. Georgia does come in as an 85.9% chance to win this one. Kentucky only a 14.1% chance. The big news on that is the quarterback play. Eyes will not only be on the Kentucky sideline seeing Joey Gatewood back there, but it's also going to be, what is Georgia going to do? I think if it's me just guessing, I'm going to say that Stetson Bennett's still going to be your starter. But I'd love to see JT get in there and see if he can get some reps at least to start putting some stuff together to see how things go. But again, Joey Gatewood's coming in there at quarterback over Terry Wilson for Kentucky. But look to see this one being a close one. Kentucky could make it a little bit closer, but I think if Georgia's offense can get to rolling, I think it makes a big difference. That line is 17 for Georgia, and the over-under on that was 42.5. Cody, how you feeling about this one? We'll get to our picks, obviously, later, but do you see anything in this one?
Yeah, I mean, even though Georgia is going up to Kentucky, with Kentucky coming off that loss to Missouri, I don't know if the Wildcats are going to have much in them. You had that real good win against Tennessee and a real good win against Mississippi State, but at the same time, we done seen how Tennessee and Mississippi State are playing this year. It's not too promising there for the Wildcats. And Georgia coming in off of, let's see, they had a bye week last week, so they're coming real fresh for ready to play. And they had that loss against Alabama the week prior too. I think Georgia's gonna come in guns hot. I think we'll see Bennett, make the adjustments that he needs to go. Maybe he got over that fear of getting his ball batted out of the air. If not, I think we may see JT Daniels come in the second half against Kentucky to kind of get some playing time, if nothing else. He hasn't played all year. He's been medically restrained. But I think this is a game you see Georgia kind of break out and, come out and say, look, we're here to play football. You see Zamar White Zeus getting some good yards, some good carries. And I think this is going to be the breakout game for George Pickens because he needs it. If he doesn't have this game go big for him, I don't want to say it, but I kind of do. I think that you're going to have some bad news for him for the rest of the season just because of the history we see with Georgia and with great players who are getting the time that they deserve. And he's on the field, yes, but at the same time, he hasn't had too many passes a year, and I think that may end up hurting Georgia if they don't get him some more targets over on that sideline because there's been several places he's been wide open and Bennett's just not seeing them. Which, again, I think that goes back to you got to put 10 quarterback over behind a line of 6-foot guys. He can't see the whole field. And I think that's where you see JT come in and kind of take over and establish his starting role as quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend.
Yeah. We're going to see how things shake out. Like I say, I think Stetson's going to come in and be your starter, but I'd like to see JT get some reps. I do know that I'm almost 100% certain that you're going to – Matt Luke's probably going to be the guy who's standing on that offensive line saying, hey, listen, if they put their hands up, you put that man on his butt. You don't let him stand there in front of you and put his hands up. If he tries to put his hands up, guess what? You got leverage on him. Lay him out. There's no sense in somebody being able to put their hands up on him. So I think they're going to learn their lesson from that. One good thing about the bye is I think this allows Georgia to sit there for a week or really 2 weeks and just have to scab over after losing to Alabama. Dealing with that, it's never fun to have to play a team after they lose. It's really never fun to have to play a team after they lose and get a week to have to sit there and think about it. A couple of your lines here as far as the yardage goes. Georgia's total yards as far as averages go is 418, whereas Kentucky's only putting up 307. Georgia's only giving up 318, whereas Kentucky's giving up 357. So you got some good stuff there as far as that goes. Kentucky's not passing for a lot. They're rushing for a little bit more than Georgia has so far. But defensively, you know how those Dogs look. So, I mean, this one should be a good matchup. I think the Dogs are going to hang on to it. A little bit cooler game, about 59 degrees there, and it is a lunchtime kickoff. So the other side of it is, can Georgia come out and be awake for this game? You're getting out there at 11 o'clock in the morning, getting things rolling, which is actually 10 o'clock in the morning for Georgia as far as Georgia time goes, because that's going to be played Central Time there in Lexington. So being used to that morning time routine, whereas past few weeks they've been playing after lunch. So that'll be one other thing to keep an eye on there. Unless you've got anything else on the Dogs and the Wildcats there, let's go ahead and jump into LSU and Auburn real quick.
Yeah, we can go and jump down now to LSU and Auburn. LSU had a real good game last week in North Carolina. TJ Finley came out, threw for some amazing yardage as a freshman quarterback against a really tough South Carolina defense, in my opinion. But at the same time, had to see what they do and what Auburn does, what adjustments Auburn makes. Auburn this year, man, I know we talked to, like you mentioned earlier, we have a buddy of ours who actually goes up to Auburn. We mentioned names for him, but he gave us a little bit of insight what's going on up there at with the Tigers, that there's going on there that we're all not too sure about. Onis is a decent quarterback. I won't say he's a great quarterback just because of some of the errors he's seen and the young attitude that he has on him. It's not the leadership quality quarterback that you would see as a head coach or offensive coach. But at the same time, our LSU's coming off. They lost Miles Brandon a few weeks ago. I think you mentioned he's still going out for this game. So TJ Finley is going to get started again, possibly. Let me go to this game real quick and see. TJ Finley put up 265 yards on South Carolina, and Davis Price had 135 yards carrying. So I think you see LSU a little bit more all-around team come around against Auburn and give Auburn a big dare in Jordan Hare, and I think Auburn weren't run out there against LSU finally.
Yeah, I do think it, being there at Jordan Hare, that is going to help them out a little bit there. And then the other side of it is you got the 3:30 kickoff there on CBS for Auburn and LSU, so they kind of get that primetime CBS spot. I know normally primetime we talk about is like an evening game, but for CBS, to me, it's always that 3:30 kickoff.
Yeah, just because afternoon slot.
Yeah, just because that's what it is. As far as quarterback play goes, Bo Nix has to step up. He's got to be a better player than what he's been so far in the season to be able to get him there. The other side of it is hand the ball to Tank Bigsby. The guy can run. Give him the rock. Let him roll downhill. He's putting up some good yardages, and they've proven once you give the kid the ball, he can run with it. So give it to him. Let him have it. Seth Williams, if you can get the ball to him, get it to him. The other side of that is you've got to get the ball to playmakers. That's for everybody. Like you said earlier, LSU looked a lot better last week. They looked like the LSU that we kind of expected to see after an a national championship run and win last year. So this game's right at 50-50, 52.1 to 47.9. LSU's favor, only a 2.5 point favorite. The over/under on that was 65. It's going to be a tight one. That's going to be a fun one to watch there at 3:30 to see how it shakes out. See if Auburn ends up getting a couple of better calls, or if the referees can keep things shaking. And the other side of it, like you just said, is TJ Finley there at LSU. Finley. Let's see how he does in his second start there for the Tigers. Kind of looking forward to seeing how this one shakes out.
His first road game.
Yeah, first road game, and it is at a hostile environment. But the other side of it is, it's not a packed crowd. So how hostile is it really going to be there? We'll yet to see. Again, that was at 3:30 on CBS. Our next game, you get Lane Kiffin, the one you were talking about in the news earlier, who either owes 25,000 pennies or maybe it's 250,000, maybe it's 2.5 million pennies that he's got to pay in a $25,000 fine
boy.
there at Ole Miss as they travel to Vandy 4 o'clock on the SEC Network. Go ahead and hit me with some info in that one, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, that Ole Miss Vandy game's going to be real fun to watch there. Vandy, oh, poor Vandy. 0-3 on the year. I don't think they have any luck in this game. I think Ole Miss comes out gun tight, firing all cylinders. They had that game last week against Auburn we talked about where I think everybody can agree that Auburn won that game off of luck and bad play.
Yep.
And I think Ole Miss is going to be kind of mad and upset about that game. They're going to take it out on Vandy because I think everybody seems to use Vandy as a punching bag and throw left and right hook at them and beat them around. I just don't think Vandy's going to be able to capable and can handle the punches that he's going to throw at them.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that for sure. I mean, you're looking at, when I look at the quarterback passing yards here, Matt Corral has 1,000 more yards than Seals does at the quarterback position. Vandy just doesn't have anything going. Anything. I'm really surprised that the head coach is still there. I don't know that they're making any kind of changes or looking to make any kind of changes, to be honest with you. It just seems kind of stagnant. But I really look for Ole Miss, especially after Lane getting fined this past week. I think they're going to come out, guns blazing, heads on fire. And even though it's Vandy and Vandy is at home, I think they're about to just light them up. That's all there is to it. I mean, between Jerrion Ely that's going to be running the ball, Matt Corral, as long as he can continue, well, I say continue, he just can't continue throwing all the interceptions that he's been throwing, they're going to be fine. It should be a cakewalk up there in Tennessee. Not a ton to talk about outside of that. That one should be, again, just a cakewalk for them. Next up, we got 7 o'clock. Y'all get a night game. Finally in the season outside of the Georgia game, which was a night game. But you get another one on primetime, 7 o'clock ESPN. Mississippi State Bulldogs traveling to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Mississippi Bulldogs coming to visit Alabama this year. With Waddle going, it's to be a good chance for them to kind of fill that spot in this game, get an idea of exactly who we're going to use for that position. But besides that, Georgia or Alabama making the changes that they need and filling in that position with problem. I mean, our offense has been hitting all cylinders this year. Defense has stepped up last few games, looking really good. Not really too many picks in on this one. The spread is 31 points, and the over/under is 63.5. So I think they're predicting this one to be a pretty much lopsided game, which I think most people are.
Yeah.
In fact, Matt Jones only had 2 interceptions on the year. I think one of this came against Georgia on a tip ball. I think he only threw one against Georgia last week, or the week before. But throwing for 1,900 yards on the year. And like we did mention, we do lose one of our best receivers in Jalen Waddle, but at the same time, excuse me. With Najee Harris there in the backfield, Devontae Smith's back there in the backfield, Mechie, back there also, and you get definitely some guys who can step up and fill those positions with no problem. I think you see the offense kind of doing what Bama does best, especially if they're at home against Mississippi State, taking care of them with very little issue.
Yeah. Mississippi State comes into this, they have a 3.5% chance to win this game. And if I could put in that Jim Carrey reference, so you're saying there's a chance, I would. But there's not a chance. The only chance they have is if KJ Costello plays perfect. He has to play like he did against LSU to open up the season. And throwing 10 interceptions so far in the season is not doing it. If he could come alive, that makes a difference. One other thing is they don't have a run offense I mean, I'm looking at this right here. Yards passing for Mississippi State, they're averaging 357.5. And Alabama's just a notch above them at 397.8 as far as passing. But look at this rushing yards. 168.6 for Alabama. 28.5 yards is what Mississippi State is averaging a game. What in the world? Their running back, he leads their team with 22 carries, 89 yards. What is that? Is that one game or is that through the season? Now, don't know how accurate it is, but regardless, KJ Costello has to play perfect. He has to hit men when they're open, no mistakes, to be able to at least keep this tight, because otherwise Mac Jones is just going to hit those guys. Like you mentioned, Jalen Waddle's not there, but he's still going to get it to Michie. He's still going to get it out there to Devontae Smith and Bolden that's coming in Waddle's spot. He's going to get the ball out, and even your tight end there. And the other side of it, Najee Harris is going to run it right down their throat and continue that, because they're also giving up. Let's see, Mississippi State's defense isn't giving up quite as much. They're still giving up 100 yards on the ground. But Najee's going to have another record-setting, or I say record, career game, I got a feeling, against this Mississippi State defense, because I think he's about to just run it right up the gut and probably put up, I wouldn't be too surprised if you see him put up 200 yards against Mississippi State, and I think you're going to see Mac Jones turn around and put up another 400 yards in this one against them as well. I got Alabama rolling pretty good in this one. Again, we'll get to our picks in a bit, but you mentioned it, 30.5 on that. I don't think Alabama's going to stick with them too tight. And keeping the tide rolling right here, you got Arkansas taking on Texas A&M. The Aggies at home, 7:30 on SEC Network there. The past couple of years, this game's been a lot tighter, and Arkansas is a lot better this year than they've been in these past couple of years. This is going to be a fun one. Let's go ahead and jump into it, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, it's going to be a fun one to watch. Sam Pittman there at Arkansas and that offense have pulled some miracles out and have given some defenses a lot of trouble. But I think A&M finally this far in the season, they're finally, piecing it together. Kellen Mond, I think he's going to go real good this game. Put up some big numbers, hopefully. And hopefully Slur can, running back for A&M, can get him some run game going at the same time. Kind of help increase their chance of winning, which I think right now they have did to that 77.4% chance of winning this game. So they're at home, get the home field advantage there. But you look at the line, it's only 12.5, and the over-under is only 54. But at the same time, A&M's averaging 422 yards a game, whereas Arkansas is only 346.5. But on the other side of that, Arkansas is allowing 418 yards a game. Averaging allowed 418, where A&M's allowing average 354, and most of that is through the air. Their run defense, I think, is probably in the top 5 best defenses as far as the run goes, but they give up a lot of passing yards over the top. And I think Jimbo Fisher and that offense or that defense gets that situated, and then make adjustments to be ready for that Arkansas air raid coming in.
Yeah, I do think, like you were saying, looking at the numbers play perfectly into a Texas A&M big win here. As far as you saying, like Arkansas's defense giving up. But I think Arkansas's defense is starting to come around. I think Arkansas's defense is going to start to stand up in this one and make it a little bit tighter than what it's been in the past. Like you say, 12.5 is the line there. You look at Felipe Franks. He's starting to come alive. He was really, really slow getting the thing started in the season. He's thrown for 975 yards. Look on the other side of the ball, though. Kellen Mond has only thrown for 10 yards more than Felipe Franks through the season. Only one touchdown more, one interception less for Kellen Mond. So he has got to come alive as well. He's got to come alive, get the ball out to the playmakers. Spiller's got to continue to run the ball downfield as well. But I think if Arkansas's defense can stand up in this one, and A&M's offense is just lackluster like they were at the start of the season, this could come down to the wire, and Arkansas could also come in here and upset A&M. So heads up to A&M. They better come in this thing awake and alive. Don't come into this thing like they did at the beginning of the season. Otherwise, I do think Arkansas can actually come in there and make something happen for them. And your final one, you got Florida finally coming back from COVID. What do you want to call it? Vacation. I mean, it's not really a vacation if you're having to deal with the virus, obviously. Again, prayers to anybody who's contracting this thing. We're not trying to make this, not trying to make light of it. I know we kind of cut up from time to time, but anybody who's coming across this thing, prayers to them. We hope for a speedy, fast recovery. Obviously, it's been slow go for Florida the past couple of weeks, having to change schedules and things up. But they do get Missouri at home at 7:30. They're going to be on the SEC Network alternate channel, which should just be a notch above the normal SEC Network channel if you get it. Florida's still in that 10th ranked spot, and luckily they get to be at home here against Missouri. What do you feel about this one, Cody? Missouri didn't look too bad on defense last week.
You cutting out? No, you was cutting out a little bit on that one, so I kind of got lost what you're talking about.
Just getting into the Missouri-Florida game.
No, I mean, like you mentioned, dude. Yeah, Missouri, what's that line at? Yeah, I mean, they got Florida 2.5 of their Missouri. Missouri's coming kind of we good now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Go.
We're having internet issues.
No, we're not. I hear you. You just don't hear me, evidently.
Just cutting in and out real bad. They Florida sitting there 12.5 over Missouri. Florida coming, like you pretty much said, they're coming off pretty much a vacation type situation. They did have a lot of outbreaks, but nothing major. Dan Mullen, I think he's ready to get back onto the field and show, we're ready to play football this year. I believe, is Kyle Trask still in this game?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't heard exactly.
Yeah, he's in there. In there last
So Kyle Trask Kyle Trask is going to come out here, and I think they're just going to tear up Missouri's defense. Looking right now, both of them are averaging 400 plus yards a game. Averaging 400 plus, but the difference is Florida's allowing almost 500 yards, whereas Missouri's only averaging 365. A lot of that's through the air on Florida because their secondary is just kind of a hit and miss. You don't know if they're going to be great this game or if they're going to be a bunch of high school players, technically speaking. But I think Florida kind of comes out, they're upset with the loss at A&M. Dan Mullen was questioning the stadium as far as the capacity volume because it didn't look, and we talked about that before, it didn't quite look right, especially when they panned up in the stadium. There had a lot of people a lot closer than 6 feet, and I didn't see too many empty seats at the top of that stadium. But nonetheless, and Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators come out swinging and they handle Missouri, I think, with no issue, and just go to work on them and beat them down.
Yeah, we're gonna see how things shake out. I do think one thing that I was looking at was Missouri's defense is actually starting to come away. They're coming alive. They're starting to stop people, and like you just mentioned, Florida's offense, they're on fire for sure. Florida's gonna score some points. And maybe Missouri's defense can stand up against it. But the other side of that is Florida's defense has not shown up yet. I do think that they show up better this week, especially after having a couple of weeks off. They really haven't had a couple of weeks off to prepare. More or less, it's been a couple of weeks off where they're not getting to do anything. They finally get back in the offices on Monday. So all this week has not only been catch-up, but it's also been prep for the upcoming week. So their bye that would have been, this week technically, and next week against Georgia would have been the game. Their bye was wiped out completely, and everybody, instead of still being able to come in and get reps and get better, everybody had to go home and practice and work out and do all that on their own. So they're going to come out, and hopefully their defense can come alive because, like you said, they're giving up a heap load of yards on defense, and it's going to take a lot for that to happen. Kyle Trask, as you know, He looks really good. He's going to continue to look good. I think he picks up right where he left off, and all that's going to work out for him. And obviously Kyle to Kyle, that's the matchup. I think if you can hold that defense, or if you can hang on to that tight end there off the edge, as well as stop the run game, you stand a good chance against Florida. Obviously, they got another wide receiver out there. Let's see if I can remember his name real quick. I can't think of his name, but he's one that gets loose. I think maybe it's Ely or something, but it doesn't matter. I do think this was going to be a little bit tighter than what they were originally thinking that it was going to be. Anyways, let's see. We lost Cody for a minute. Let me see if I can get him back in real quick. All right, guys, sorry about that. We had to go back in and change up the way that we're going to finish this up. So the audio that you're going to hear of Cody is going to be a little bit different. Zoom does not always work out here in the country. Sometimes it does, sometimes it works fine, and then other times it doesn't. So the quality of sound is going to change a little bit for you guys here in the middle of the podcast. Sorry about that. But we're going to try to scoot through it here. We've pretty much gone through all of your SEC games. Which is a good deal there. I'm going to pull up on the screen for you guys visually that are watching. These are our weekly picks this week. Cody, if you've got your scores and stuff there in front of you, I'll let you go through your picks, and then I'll follow it up. Cody comes into this week 7-5 so far, so got a winning record. Hopefully he can keep it up.
Yeah, I don't know. This week's kind of got me for a toss. I'm actually regretting some of my bets or some of my picks, but as far as score goes, but as far as my teams, I think I'm pretty good. I'm pretty much going to take the big dog in every matchup. I don't have any other underdogs this week. I think this is pretty much a easy week for the big boys. Start off there with Georgia and Kentucky. Give me Georgia over Kentucky. Even though Kentucky is at home, I think Georgia is just too powerful for them to handle. And Georgia gets the win. I want to pick the score of 42-10. Next one down, you get the LSU.
Yep.
Yeah, the LSU visiting there in Auburn. I don't think Auburn has, all their horses in a row, or all their ducks in a row, I should say. Whereas LSU comes in, the freshman quarterback. The freshman quarterback's going for a really good game there in South Carolina. But at the same time, I don't think Auburn has much of a chance there unless they can get Beasley running on the ground. Give me LSU over Auburn, 35-28. I think that's going to be a close one.
Yeah. You'll keep on with them, or you want me to throw some out?
I feel we go back and forth. Well, you just got one pulled up, don't you?
Yeah, I got it all pulled up.
If you don't cover those first two, then we'll jump on down.
All right, I'm similar to you as far as all the games go this week. I don't have any underdogs winning. I've got a couple of them keeping it a lot closer than I think some people are going to think. But the Georgia-Kentucky, I think Georgia does get the win 38-17. I think the offense puts up enough and the defense holds enough, but I just don't see us getting like a powerhouse, huge win here at Kentucky. I also think it being an earlier game, too, it takes a little while for us to get woken up. So I think the first quarter is pretty slow. Second quarter start to pick it up, and then the second half, I think Georgia does a lot like they did against Arkansas and really comes alive in that second quarter. And then moving on to that LSU-Auburn game, I think LSU is going to handle Auburn easily. Auburn doesn't look all that great this year, unfortunately. LSU picked it up a lot last weekend, and I think they continue that trend this weekend and get the win 41-27 there at Auburn. Following that one up, Ole Miss and Vandy. I think you and I are pretty close on this one. I don't think Vandy's going to give them much of a shot, and I think Ole Miss's offense just lights the scoreboard up. I've got Ole Miss in this one 54-10.
Yeah, I got Ole Miss 56-14 on that one. Ole Miss's defenses are going to give a few big plays and probably a couple touchdowns. But I think Ole Miss's error rate is just going to be way too much there for Vandy. And like we mentioned earlier, where they're coming off that fine Lane Kiffin, I think that the Ole Miss, I'm still calling them the Rebels. I don't know whatever they're calling themselves, but the Rebels, come out swinging and they take care of Vandy with no issue there. Jumping on down to Arkansas and Texas A&M. Texas A&M at home, I think they're still trying to figure out a few little things here and there, but I think that they're pretty much handle Arkansas no problem. But I think the offense still has a few little things that they need to figure out. Give me Texas A&M 28, Arkansas 10.
Yeah, I got that one a little bit closer, just like I was saying earlier when we were kind of previewing the games. Arkansas has kept it close the past couple of years, and Arkansas wasn't all that great. Arkansas is a lot better this year. They're not perfect. They're not the greatest team in the SEC or the SEC West, obviously. But I do think that they're getting better, and I think that defense looks a lot better this year. I think they're going to hold A&M to keeping it from being a blowout. And I think late, Arkansas starts to surge back, but I think A&M does pull it out by a field goal, 27-24 in that one. And then I'm going to jump up to the Mississippi State-Bama game. I think Bama continues to roll. I think Mississippi State, Mike Leach, has not got his team together right now, and I just think Mississippi State started off strong and ended up just being the frauds really after that, and just kind of have dwindled down to not much of anything. I don't think they put up a lot of a fight here against Bama. I think this one's going to end 44-14. I got Alabama with the win there. Again, I think Mac Jones and that offense are just going to roll through them. And I think Mississippi State, they may score one early, but I think that second touchdown comes late in the game against kind of mop-up duty.
Yeah, I mean, Bama, I think, being at home again, coming out that win against Tennessee, I think they're coming out again, firing all cylinders. We see the adjustments they make at their receiver with Jalen Waddle being out, and I think they handle Mississippi State no problem. I got them picked 42-14 in that game.
Yeah, that looks good there. Let's see, the final one that we have here is Mizzou and Florida. I'll let you pick it first because you and I are a little bit different on this one.
Yeah, Florida, I think, they're coming off that bye week, basically a bye week. Dan Mullen there, his players are ready to play some ball. Missouri's been playing decent this year, but I think we finally see Florida's offense and defense fire and pick up where they should be at, hopefully. I got this one a blowout, Florida 56, Missouri 17.
Yeah, I can see it going that way. I can see Florida coming in ready for blood and kind of hunting for that and throwing a lot of points up there. Because we did learn in the Alabama and Georgia game that as of right now, and Nick Saban even said it, he said at this point, great defense is a good thing for sure, but great offense just trumps great defense, obviously, because Alabama rolled past Georgia in the end. First half looked good, but Alabama moved on. And I think that's kind of the possibility of what could happen there for sure, because Mizzou's defense looked a lot better, especially against that against LSU, and then they turned around and they did the same thing against Kentucky last week. And that's the only reason I think this one ends up staying a little bit closer. I think Mizzou does fall by a touchdown, 31-24. There at the Swamp, and being at the Swamp I think will make a little bit of a difference. I still think Florida gets some points on the board, but I think Mizzou's able to hold them down just enough to kind of keep it tight. But again, I do think Florida gets that one 31-24. And the last picks that we've got for you this weekend are, as always, MadDawgs picks. Again, not looking all that great in the season so far. 2-5 is his record. In the LSU-Auburn game, he's going to take Auburn in this one. So he's going to pick the underdog as far as that goes, with Auburn being at home. And then he's also going to take the Dogs of Georgia over Kentucky there in Lexington. So that's your picks for the weekend between Cody and I, as well as MadDawgs pick there. And let's go ahead and jump into, I know we've got a little bit to talk about as far as some of the games around the top 25 that'll be played this week. Like we talked about, obviously, Trevor Lawrence is out at Clemson against Boston College, but I still think Clemson rolls on with that one. One of the other big games to watch out for is Cincinnati and Memphis. Memphis is not a bad team. Cincinnati looks really good. They look really good after taking SMU down last weekend. Wasn't expecting them to roll past them. So Cincinnati's going to be a team to watch out for.
Yeah, Cincinnati's kind of a dark horse, I think. Trying to figure my thing reset on me, so I'm just going to pull the games back up real quick. There it is. But yeah, with Trevor Lawrence being out there at Clemson, that's going to kind of throw a little monkey wrench there for Clemson, but I'm sure that they'll handle it no problem. Boston College has a really good chance of messing things up, so we'll definitely see what they can come up with. Cincinnati's trying to keep on their streak of staying undefeated. They have a really good challenge against a team that has been really decent this year, and the Memphis Tigers, who have been borderline at top 25 in the past several weeks. So definitely watch out for them. Excuse me. Notre Dame taking on Virginia Tech. That would be I think that's going to be a no issue there. I did see one game was postponed. Number 19 Marshall versus Florida International has been postponed. So that game was supposed to play tomorrow night, or tonight on the 30th. Or sorry, tomorrow night on the 30th, but instead that game has been postponed to a later date. Continuing down, you got number 16 Kansas State taking on West Virginia at 12 o'clock. Michigan State taking on Michigan, number 13 Michigan at 12 o'clock also. Coastal Carolina, number 20, taking on Georgia State. Number 23, Iowa State, taking on Kansas. Number 4, Notre Dame, taking on Georgia Tech at 3:30. Number 17, Indiana, taking on Rutgers at 3:30 also. Texas and Oklahoma State taking on each other. Number 6, Oklahoma State, that is, at 4 o'clock. These games are all Eastern time. Number 25 spot, Boise taking on Air Force, and I think my scores are reset again. If you want to take it from there.
Yeah, a couple of your other good ones that are going to be happening later on. You got that 7:30 kickoff on the ABC. You got number 3 Ohio State traveling to number 18 Penn State. Again, I don't think that they have a crowd on it, but obviously Penn State losing the way that they did against Indiana last week should have them coming in and licking their wounds. But they're going to have to lick them and get them cleaned up quick, because Ohio State's going to come in here and pop them in the mouth as well, as if they can't stop them. Ohio State does come in as a 12.5-point favorite, so that one's going to be tight. It's going to be 45 degrees up there in University Park. Justin Fields looks on fire starting this thing off. Navy SMU will play at 7:30 as well. Then you got North Carolina, Virginia. I think you may have said that at 8 o'clock. One of the other good ones that's going to be happening, you got number 24 Oklahoma, that is 3-2, taking on number non-ranked Texas Tech. That's 2-3. They're in a Big 12 matchup. Western Kentucky travels to undefeated BYU. And then, obviously, the Wisconsin-Nebraska game was one of the other ones that we talked about that has been canceled in the game. But between the Cincinnati, seeing how Cincinnati continues to look, Notre Dame should take care of Georgia Tech for sure. The Indiana-Rutgers game, that one's another one that I'm looking forward to, seeing how that one shakes out. Rutgers doesn't look too bad starting this season at 3:30 like you talked about. And then the other one that I'm looking forward to watching outside of the SEC in the top 25 is that Texas-Oklahoma State game that's going to be playing at 4 o'clock on Fox. That's it as far as the top 25. You got a couple outside of our league and outside of our top 25 that you wanted to hit real quick? If they'll pull up. A couple of other things that I was looking at just a minute ago. Your All-State playoff predictor, Alabama has an 87% chance to be in the playoffs. Ohio State and Clemson both have 75% chances to be in. Wisconsin still, after their win, but they're even with their coronavirus issues right now, which might not matter this week but will matter next week, have a 47% chance to get in. Following that up, you got Georgia at 24%, Notre Dame 22%, Oregon 21%, USC 16%, and BYU at 13%. So that's your All-State playoff predictor coming in there that they've got. And I won't be able to get any outside of the top 25 coming up, but I do know. Well, they're both on here. Oklahoma's playing. I thought Oklahoma was playing. Yeah, Texas Tech. Okay, yeah, I got that.
Yeah,
okay.
24 Oklahoma playing unranked Texas State. A couple games outside top 25 real quick. Of course, my number 2 team right now, just because of it, I got to do it. The old Louisiana Raging Cajuns.
Not the Raging Cajuns.
Oh, the Raging Cajuns are taking on Texas State. That game being played on ESPNU at 8 o'clock Eastern. Louisiana is a 17-point favorite in that game, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that one. Besides that, I really don't think there's any another big matchup outside top 25. Let's see. Virginia Tech, Louisville taking on each other at 4 o'clock Eastern. That one's set to be a good one. Virginia Tech is a 3.5-point favorite in that game. And I think that's pretty much our big ones. Our local team here in Alabama, in Troy, does take on Arkansas State at 3 o'clock Eastern on ESPN3. And they're actually going that one, the underdog. Arkansas State is favored by 2.5 points.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
besides that, I think that pretty much takes care of our games outside top 25.
Yeah, there you go. So we were able to hit you with the SEC and try to keep it a little bit harder on our SEC. I know sometimes we kind of trail from it, but we try to keep it like that. Again, we've already said prayers to anybody who's having to deal with the coronavirus that we're going through. But looking forward to a good slate of games this weekend. Next weekend, upcoming weekend, we got a lot of really, really good games coming up that we're going to get to look forward to. We're not going to dive too deep into some of the under the lights stuff here. I will put it up on the screen for you guys. Not going to dig in too deep on it. Don't have a heap load for you guys on it. I actually didn't pull up any of the previews, but we will review the games on Sunday that we're going to go through, because that's the biggest thing is the matchups. They're fun. Alabama will start to get into playoff contention this coming week. I believe if it's not this week, it's next week. Then most Georgia, Florida schools around that we go through, they'll get started in the weeks to come. They're still kind of mid-season, really, after starting a good bit later. But one of the games that I did actually go to this weekend that didn't look quite as great as I wanted it to was Westwood. I actually went and watched Windsor come to Westwood to play over in Camilla, and Windsor, I think they came in pretty strong. I don't recall what their record was. I do know that Westwood was handed their first loss last weekend after they had to travel up to Montgomery to play in Athens, and they lost that one pretty tight there. I think it was like 24-19, something, 26-19. Pretty close game there. Ended up losing by a touchdown. I know officiating came in to that one a big deal. But coming into the game tonight, I was looking forward to it. As soon as I got there, Westwood kicked it off to them, and I think the quarterback got loose right after the kickoff, and they went up by 6. Turn around a little bit later, they get another touchdown, go up by 12, didn't get 2-point conversion. Same thing, they scored a third time before the half to make it 18-0. A little bit tough. Westwood did drive down the field, unfortunately did not score before the half, ended up turning over the ball right there at the end zone, I think on about the 8-yard line. Did get the ball after the half, drove down. Turnovers was a big key point, and they just couldn't move the ball quite like they wanted to. Windsor came in pretty strong, and in the fourth quarter, by the time I left, there was about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Windsor had scored again and was at that point pretty much had the game won 26-0 again when I left, about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So unfortunately, Westwood will fall again tonight. So that was one of your Thursday night games. Again, you guys will get this on Friday, but as far as your Thursday information, that's pretty much what I've got for you. Like we've always said, you guys follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. Leave us a message. I think at this point it's just kind of become one of those, what would you call it, Cody? It's just, I don't really know exactly how to even explain it.
Yeah, about that. Anyways.
It's just kind of become our thing.
A closer.
Yeah, closer. There you go. There you go. That's a good way to put it right there.
Yeah, like you mentioned, guys, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. And if y'all have anything that y'all want us to cover, if you have anything you want to let us know, even some feedback or criticism, we'll take it. You can even email us at scctalk20 at gmail.com. I think besides that, man, it was a rough episode, but like any other one, we have technical difficulties.
Yeah. It wasn't too bad. One thing about it is there's times where it'll sound a little rougher on your end, but luckily on my end, it 9 times out of 10 doesn't sound too bad. So hopefully it's going to continue that way. Well, let's wait just a second. Okay. Well, we did have a little bit of a pause there. I thought her as I'm saying all that, everything kind of paused and acted like it wanted to stop. But anyways, one last thing on it is We have, again, opened up our support, so if you guys want to support us, the link will be at the end of the description of this episode. You guys click that, go to it if you guys wouldn't mind, and would like to not sponsor us, but basically be a supporter. We'd really appreciate it, and we'd really enjoy that. If you guys wouldn't mind, it gives you a couple options there. So, but outside of that, I mean, that's all we got. We'll check in on you guys after the games on Sunday, and we will we'll review everything. Appreciate you guys listening. This is Cody and Holden with SEC Talk, and we're out.
We out.